Alright guys, so today I'm gonna talk a little bit about anger and how you can control your anger so you can live like a more happy and peaceful life. So it's another one of these weird video game analogy videos because I absolutely love making these ones and you guys seem to love these videos as well. So let's not wait any longer and let's get right into it. So I want you to imagine for a second here that you are a villager from Minecraft. So what do villagers do in Minecraft? Well, they just live a very peaceful and purposeful existence. They most likely just work on their farm or they work as like a blacksmith or something like that. They just have like a regular job that is like clear for them what they need to do every day. You know, they just vibe a little bit. They might start making baby villagers or something like that. Just overall, they just live a very purposeful, meaningful, and very peaceful existence. And in the context of this video, you are actually the villager here. Because just like the villager in Minecraft, you also want to live just a very peaceful existence. You just want to vibe in life. You just want to go with the flow and just do whatever you like to do in life and not be disrupted by anything or something like that. But unfortunately for the villager here, there are also these like very annoying creatures in the game, which are the zombies in this case. Because what we can see in Minecraft is that at nighttime, when there is darkness outside, you see a lot of zombies spawn. And what the zombies do is they cause a lot of drama. They often, go to the village, they start attacking the villagers and eventually try to like eat the villagers or like turn them into zombie villagers as well. So they can like become a zombie as well and they can infect others as well. So overall, zombies, they cause a lot of drama, they cause a lot of mayhem in the village, they are very disruptive like that, and they are just very, very annoying in the game. And when it comes to real life in this video, we can see that the zombie symbolizes the main topic of this video, which is anger here. Because anger is also in real life the one thing that can disrupt your peace and cause a lot of like drama and bullshit in your life that is like sometimes very annoying and tough to deal with. So the thing with zombies in Minecraft is that they will become very dangerous when they are able to get near you as the player or like the villager in this case. Because what happens when a zombie gets like very close to a villager is that he can attack the villager and then he will turn them into zombie villagers. And then what happens then is that the zombie villager will also attack other villagers because now he is a zombie. And then you will have this like chain effect where more and more villagers will get infected. And it just causes a lot of mayhem. And when it comes to real life and anger here, we can see that once again, the same dynamic plays out here. Because when anger is able to get close to you and get a hold of you, you turn into this very angry version of you. It's like you turn into this completely different version of you that you don't even recognize anymore. And you do all these things that you probably regret afterwards. And this is probably the reason why you clicked on this video as well. Because this is like the main problem that you're facing in your life. Like you want to be able to control your anger. You don't want to be controlled by it, but you want to control it yourself because you don't want to harm other people. You don't want to hurt other people and you just want to live like a very peaceful and happy existence. So then the great question is, of course, how can we solve this? How can we prevent anger from taking us over and reaching this state where we can't control it anymore? Well, for that, we need to take a look at Minecraft and the zombies here first. And we need to figure out what makes the zombies so dangerous here. Because if we figure out what makes them dangerous, we can then come up with a strategy to counter them. And we can also come up with a strategy to counter our anger. So when we look at the zombie here, we can see that there are two things that make them very dangerous. And the first one is darkness. So the thing with darkness is that this is the thing that makes the zombies spawn. Because if there is no darkness, there are no zombies. And this is also why in the game, when it becomes nighttime, the game becomes very hard. Because then it's literally dark everywhere. And then everywhere there will spawn zombies and you will be surrounded by a lot of zombies. And it will be very hard to defend yourself here. So darkness is like a very big thing when it comes to zombies. And then the second one here is proximity. Because if you have played Minecraft before, you probably know that zombies are close range attackers. So they can only like harm you and damage you whenever they are able to get near you. Because it's only when they are able to get close to you, then they can attack you and then they can turn you into a zombie as well. So as long as there is darkness, zombies are able to spawn. And then whenever zombies are able to get near you, then they are able to turn you into a zombie villager. And then things will get out of control, because then the chain reaction will start, because you will attack other villagers as well. And when we bring this back to real life, we can see that things work very similarly here. Because instead of darkness that spawns a zombie, there is also something that can spawn or like trigger anger in this case. And that is an emotional trigger. What an emotional trigger is that it is something like an event or like a thought that you have inside of your head that can like trigger anger inside of you. And all these triggers, they are always like based on personal beliefs and past experiences that you have. So if, for example, you have been bullied in the past and it was like a very horrible experience, then whenever like nowadays you would get like bullied again, for example, by someone, or even you see someone else getting bullied, then what will happen is that this feeling of anger that you had in the past, it will once again get triggered inside of you again, because you have this like very negative association in your mind with bullying from the past. So now it gets triggered again. So it's important to understand here that emotional triggers, they are very personal and they are different for everyone, because it totally depends, like I just said, on like the things that happened in the past, or also like the personal beliefs that you have, because maybe you got raised in a certain way with certain beliefs, for example. And then when we look at the villager and the zombie, whenever they get like close to each other and things spiral out of control, that is also something that happens in real life as well. Because when anger is able to get like very close to you, what happens is that you start indulging into that anger. Because what we often do when we get like emotionally triggered, so we get like the emotion of anger inside of us, is that we often like start indulging into it. So if you get like a negative thought, or you see like something happening outside that you have like negative thoughts about, then what happens is you often start to complain, or you start to like resist it, or you start to like fight against it. Like sometimes you might even become angry at the fact that you're angry here. And especially if the trigger is like a very big one, like maybe, for example, you get like punched in the face, for example, like that can trigger like a lot of anger. Then what can happen is that we immediately indulge into the anger. Like we immediately allow it to like fully take us over. And then what happens, like you can see in the image here, like what you see in Minecraft when you become a zombie villager, like we become like the angry version of ourselves in real life as well. Like especially if the emotional trigger is a very big one, it can very quickly take us fully over. So then if we would start to think about like what a great solution would be to this problem, you would probably say something like, oh, you just need to get rid of like the emotional trigger, because if there is no trigger, then there won't be anger, and then there won't be any chance for it to spiral out of control. But the thing is that would be a great thing if that were possible, but unfortunately it isn't. And that is because, just like I told you, these emotional triggers, they are very personal and they are very deeply rooted inside of you. And there is not really any way to like fully get rid of them. So just like in Minecraft, where it is like inevitable that nighttime will eventually come and that zombies will eventually spawn and there's not really anything you can do about it, the same goes for real life with your emotional triggers. Like you can't prevent anger from being triggered, and there's not really anything you can do about it. Like you can't control whether like someone punches you in the face or not. Like, hey, maybe you can try and not be as annoying, but hey, there's not really like 100% control over like how your external world will behave and like what will trigger you in this case. But what we can do here is focus on the part where you start indulging into anger and you actually make things a lot worse for yourself. Because this part of the problem is something you can actually change, because this is something you actually have control over. And how do we do that? Well, for that, we need these things called torches. Because what you can see when you play Minecraft is that torches are like a source of light. And because zombies can only like spawn and like live in darkness, using torches will allow you to like keep the zombies at a distance from you. So it's like a very effective tool to like keep the zombies away from you and just do whatever you want to do in the game. And when it comes to tackling anger instead of zombies here, we can see that the torch symbolizes mindfulness. And for those of you who aren't familiar with mindfulness, it's basically this concept where you become like fully aware of like the thoughts and feelings and emotions that you have like inside of your head. So you're basically like so present that you can like calmly observe everything that is going on inside of your head without indulging into it. So whenever you become angry, you don't just indulge into it, but instead you just observe it and you become aware of it first. And this is actually very powerful, guys, because what mindfulness allows you to do is create like this space between you and your emotions. So between you and anger, for example. Because what happens if you're like fully aware of your thoughts, you're like fully present and fully in the moment, is that whenever you see like anger rising up, there's like a zombie that spawns inside of you, for example, you can like notice it immediately and just say to yourself like, oh, hey, I just started to get like this feeling of anger inside of me. And it's like, oh, that's very interesting actually, because I just had this emotional trigger and now there's this feeling of anger inside of me. And it's like you suddenly start to like observe it and start to notice it. And you become like very curious about it instead of just immediately going along with it and just start complaining, start resisting it, start becoming angry at the fact that you're angry, for example. It's like you create some space between you and your emotions here. And what you can do in that space is just make a decision for yourself on what you want to do with this feeling and this emotion. Because you can, for example, decide like, oh, I don't like this, so I'm just gonna like fight against it. I'm gonna start like indulging into the anger. Or you can decide to like, hey, I don't want to feel angry. So, I'm just gonna look at this feeling and just allow it to pass. Because the great thing about like both the zombies in Minecraft and also anger in real life is that both of them will eventually go away. Because what you can see in Minecraft is that nighttime will eventually turn into daytime again. And during daytime, you will see all the zombies burning because, like I said before, zombies can only survive in darkness. So when it becomes day again, they will eventually burn and die. And when it comes to your anger, the same happens here as well, guys, because emotions, you gotta understand, like emotions are never permanent. Like you probably recall a lot of moments in your life where you felt a little bit angry, but then you didn't immediately react to it because maybe, for example, you were surrounded by a lot of people, so it wasn't very appropriate to be angry or something like that. And then you just let the feeling be there for a second, not really react to it. And then eventually it just passed. It just went away after a while. And then probably afterwards you were also like very relieved to like, hey, I'm glad I didn't indulge into the anger and I didn't react to it because things would have gotten out of control. And now I was able to stay more calm and peaceful because I just let it pass. So just like in Minecraft, where you can just sit safely inside of your house with like all the torches around you and just look outside of the window and look at the zombies, just stare at them and be like, oh, you can't hurt me. I'm just going to wait for daytime again. It's like very similar in real life. Like you can just, whenever you are mindful and present, you can just look at the anger and just observe it inside of your mind. Just think, oh, that's interesting. I'm just going to wait for you to pass away. And then, eventually you will be fine. And now you may think to yourself, well, Cappie, that sounds great and all, but how do I do this? How do I become like more mindful and aware of my thoughts and create this space that you just talked about between like you and like your emotions, like anger here? And how you do this, guys, is with meditation. So some of you are probably already familiar with this concept, but for those of you who don't really know a lot about meditation already, it's basically this habit where you just sit down or lay down and just close your eyes and you just focus on your breathing. And you just continue to do that. And then whenever you get distracted because you start having thoughts and you like forget about the breath, you start noticing it and you just bring your attention back to your breathing again. And what this does is that it trains your mind in such a way that whenever you like indulge into thought patterns, you more often start to have these moments where you like snap out of them. So you don't like fully indulge into all these thought patterns as much anymore. So if you do this often enough, what starts to happen is that when it comes to anger and you start like feeling like getting angry inside of you, you will be able to notice it whenever it happens and you will be able to like catch the anger, so to say. So whenever like you get emotionally triggered, you like start to get a little bit of angry feelings, like maybe your body starts to feel a little bit tense or something like that, or you get some thoughts inside of your head, but you will be able to like immediately notice it and think to yourself, oh, right now I'm getting angry because my body is feeling more tense and I'm starting to get a lot of like negative thoughts inside of my head. So then you can create like this space for yourself, like I just talked about, where you like separate yourself from the thoughts that you have, and you have the space between you and your thoughts where you can actually make a decision on what you want to do with these thoughts. So if you start practicing meditation, what will happen is that you will create mindfulness. And with mindfulness, you will prevent yourself from becoming the angry version of you. You will not be taken over by your emotions and thoughts anymore, but instead you create a space between you and the anger so that then you will be able to stay the same and stay at peace. And to give you guys another example that might seem maybe a little bit more clear to you, you can also view anger as like some sort of a fire, and then things like complaining and violence, so basically like indulging into anger, that's basically like the fuel for the fire. So that basically keeps the fire alive. And then what you do with mindfulness is you basically just take away the fuel from the fire. So by being mindful, you don't complain anymore, you don't resist anymore, you don't become angry at the fact that you're angry anymore. So you take the fuel away, and then eventually what will happen is when you take the fuel away from the fire is that the fire will eventually burn out. So it will become daytime again, the zombies will burn, but the fire won't burn anymore because the fire is out and you will be able to be at peace. But now we're not quite finished yet here, guys, because what you still do have to understand though is that when it comes to anger, anger always comes in like certain levels. Because let's say, for example, you are stuck in traffic. You just drive yourself to work and suddenly you become stuck in traffic. So what happens then is that maybe you become a little bit angry. You become a little bit pissed off. You maybe start to complain a little bit. So there's like a zombie inside of your head that is getting like a little bit closer to you because you are stuck in traffic. Now, if you have meditated for a while and you've gained like more presence and more mindfulness, more awareness, then what might happen is that you will be able to keep the zombie at a distance here. You will be able to notice this anger from rising up and just keep it at a distance and just observe it and decide to not indulge into it. But if we look at another scenario here, like maybe you get punched in the face, for example, we can see that a lot more anger starts to rise up. Like what you can see in the slide here is that I added an extra zombie in because, if you get punched in the face compared to being stuck in traffic, that will make you a lot more angry. That will be like a very big emotional trigger for most people. So then, there will be a lot of anger, and then because of it, you will also need more mindfulness and like more torches in Minecraft in order to keep the anger away from you. Because what you have to understand is that the higher the level of anger is, the higher the level of like mindfulness you need in order to like keep the anger away from you and keep the anger at a distance from you. So if you just started out with meditation, like maybe you're going to start meditating after this video, for example, and you have a couple of sessions in, then you might start to notice that, there are like some situations where you're able to stay more calm, but there will still be these moments where the anger will be so big that it will like completely take you over because you're simply not at that level where you're mindful and present enough in order to catch it. So it's important to note here that taking more control of like your emotional state and emotional well-being, it is something that takes time. It's not something that will happen in one day with like one meditation session, but you do need to give it some time, guys. And it's completely normal that even if you do this for like a year or something, there's still these moments where, emotions will get the better of you. But don't get demotivated by this, but just stay consistent with it. So the way I like to look at this and how I keep myself motivated in this is by treating anger and like situations that trigger your anger as some sort of like a video game. Because what I do in real life is that whenever like something happens, like I get stuck in traffic, for example, that's like a level 1 boss battle, so to say. And then when something worse happens, like I get punched in the face, for example, the example I gave you earlier, that's maybe like a level 5 boss battle. That's a little bit more difficult. And then what I do when it comes to mindfulness is that, if I have like a couple of meditation sessions in, there's like level 1 mindfulness that I gained. And then when I start meditating more often, then what will happen is that I will increase my mindfulness, and then I will have like level 5 mindfulness, for example. And then, like I just mentioned before, the higher amount of mindfulness that you have, so the higher the level of your mindfulness is, the higher the level of the boss battles that you will be able to beat. And this is actually very funny because if you treat it like a game this way, then what you will start to notice in real life is that, you know, whenever something happens that triggers your anger, and that would usually like make you feel like very angry, like you completely indulge into the anger. Like if then you are more present and you're able to catch it and stay calm, then it's like this fun little thing where you're like, oh, you know, I just beat this boss battle. Like usually I would get angry at this point, but now I was able to stay calm. And then suddenly you get like very motivated to like keep doing this and like keep increasing the level of your mindfulness and stay meditating, because suddenly it's like you just reach this checkpoint in your life. Like, oh, now I can handle this situation and now I can just move on to the next situation. So if you have any trouble with like staying consistent with meditation and like you easily get demotivated by things after a while, please just give this tactic a try, guys, because believe me, it's just a lot of fun. It makes the process a lot of more fun because now suddenly you have this like way of measuring your progress. So what you can do as well is just like journal about it as well. Like, hey, today I was able to like stay calm in the situation where I usually get angry. Like that's like great progress for me. So once again, just do this, guys, because it makes things a lot of more fun. And that also brings us to the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to pull a valuable lesson out of this. And always keep in mind that although you can't prevent anger from rising up and spawning, like you can't prevent zombies from spawning in Minecraft, there is a way to take control over them instead of being controlled by it. Always remember that anger is an emotion and not an identity. So keep meditating, stay consistent with it, and play the game and win the game, guys. Stop thinking, start doing. Take care.